If you missed the first segment, if you missed the first question, we kind of talked about what it's like to get a locums gig for a very short period of time if you're just ending residency. So if you haven't heard that one, go back to the one before that. Now we're going to be talking about Dr. Nate.
Yeah, so I'm scouring Reddit right now and spending some time here trying to get some information about how we can discuss things that are kind of really on, like, what people are really talking about. So from the Reddit medicine, I don't know what this means, forum, I forget what this all means, but someone in Reddit, tell me how this works, but this is in medicine. It says, how sustainable is 24/7 call for 1 week per month procedural? And it says, it seems some procedural fields have a model where attendings are on call 1 week per month for what I assume is 24/7. Is this sustainable for an entire career? People who have done it in specialties where you're frequently called from home while on call, how intolerable is the schedule? So I will start off by saying this is not how I work. I don't think trauma surgery is like this at all. When they say procedure, I'm thinking, when I see this, I think they're talking about like cardiology, interventional radiology, like those type of specialties where you can be home for a significant period of time. And then when you get called in, it's really to do a procedure and then go back home.
But I feel like you kind of did this.
Well, so guys, let me preface this by saying, when I worked, I don't do 24/7 call anymore. I don't like it.
Right. But when you were at
I would do, so one of my first gigs, the first jobs that I worked, I would do 24/7, right? So I would work Monday, 24 hours. I would take in all the traumas, all the general surgery for 24 hours from 7 a.m. until 7 a.m. the next morning. Then technically from, once I sign out, which is at 7 o'clock in the morning, Tuesday, I'm off. I'm on backup though, right?
Right, but that's what I'm saying. Like, to say off, is that right? Or you're just backup?
Okay, so
because
backup,
I don't count backup as off.
So backup means I'm in the hotel or I'm in my house and I am sleeping, I am recovering, but I cannot drink. I cannot be more than 15 minutes away because the person who's doing 24/7 call on Tuesday in the hospital, if there's an emergency, and emergencies could be like, hey, I need to go to the OR and do an appendectomy and a trauma comes in, then the person who's on backup, which would be me, on Tuesday, you got to go in.
Right.
I got to come in.
Right.
Right. I got to be prepared to come in. The likelihood of that happening, though, is low, right? I can't tell you what the percentage is, but the percentage is like less than 20% chance that I may have to come in, right? So let's say nothing comes in, right? I'm just resting, I'm eating, I'm watching TV, I'm recovering, and so forth. But I got to have my phone on right next to me. Then let's say nothing comes in, I'm good. Wednesday comes, 7 a.m., I am there. I'm getting signed up from the person who just finished Tuesday. I'm back in. Same thing, 24/7. And that would alternate like that, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, for 2 weeks straight, right? And then a whole new set of 2 trauma surgeons would come on and take over for the next 2 weeks. And then I would be free, no duties, no backup for 24 hours or for 2 weeks.
Right.
Those 2 weeks were hell. It was rough. There could be 2 weeks where, when you're on backup, you don't get called at all. There could be times where you're finishing your call at 7 in the morning. So let's say it's Tuesday morning, I'm finishing up from Monday and, I get an appy that comes in at 5 in the morning, or I get an appy that comes in at 3 in the morning. The next question is in your mind is, well, who's going to do this appy? Who's the best person to do this appy? Should it be me who's just finishing? Right. So now we're talking about operating at hour.
Legs are shaking.
Hour 27.
So tired.
Hour 28. Or should it be the fresh person who comes in, but they haven't gotten a chance to round. They haven't gotten a chance to see and get to know any of these patients. And then they're still getting general surgery things.
Yes.
So it's it's so many mental gymnastics that I just didn't like it anymore. I don't like it. So for me, I work at trauma centers, acute care surgery centers that do 12-hour shifts. You work hard for 12 hours and then tag, the next person takes care of it. So they're fresh enough so that they can still operate. Or if you need to stay a little bit later on, you're like on hour 13, 14, like you're not exhausted, right? You can still do an operation if you just don't want the person coming in, the night person, or vice versa, the day person, to get screwed.
Right.
So that's what I do. But 24/7, I always imagine this for the procedural type folks, like the folks who don't have to be in-house all the time.
Right.
My job, I have to be in-house.
Right.
Right.
Except for when you were backup.
Right. So that's why I think the IR docs who Maybe during the daytime, they just have regular, normal IR stuff. But at nighttime, I just noticed that for like a week straight, if you got a spleen that needs to be embolized, if you have, something that's extravasating that needs to be embolized, they come in. And that's tough. But it's, though you always look at it as, okay, can you work hard for a week and then be off?
Right.
It's tough. There's so many different factors to think about this. Like, but are you really off for that week, right? After that week is done, right? After that week is done, you're probably going back to a regular schedule where you're just doing...
That's what I was going to ask.
A regular 7 a.m.
Is that just a call, right? Like, is that just a call, or is that how they work?
I think it's call.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I think it's call.
I think the question is referring just to the call, right? Because, so for those of you who may or may not kind of understand how, a lot of doctors' schedules work, you can be in the hospital where you have a shift. That shift doesn't necessarily equate to call, right? Is that
yeah?
Right?
You work. You get there at 7 a.m. You work till like 5.
Right. It doesn't always equate to call, right? So call might be the thing that you do mostly at night or overnight, right? But sometimes call can look like you're just the person on all day for that particular shift, which might be 24 hours.
Right.
Right? Or longer than 24 hours. So, for example, me, I do a 62.5-hour shift from Friday evening to Monday morning. Right? So call can look a lot different depending on
right.
Where you are. So
I think it's definitely harder on the services where you take a week of call and you still are doing stuff during the daytime. So that's what I'm saying. Like, it's, let's say from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., you still have regular stuff that you have to do, like your IR doc, and you still got to
the scheduled
the scheduled stuff during the daytime.
Right.
But then from 5 p.m. until the next morning, you might get called in, or you've possibly been called in to do stuff, and then you still got to come back in after
the next morning
and do 7 a.m. 5 p.m.
Yes.
That's tough.
That is tough. And we see that in OB a lot.
But then when you finish with that week, you may have the weekend off, but then Monday comes and you're not on call, but you're still doing 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. and you keep going.
Yeah, we see that in OB. Not so much 24/7 call, right? We don't really see OBs on consecutively like that, but you might have an OB service that could have you on call 2, maybe even 3 times. I mean, 3 is excessive, but 2 or 3 times a week, and then also have weekend call maybe once a month or maybe twice a month, again, depending on how many docs are in your rotation. Right?
What does that do to you? Like, I know when you do your weekends, there's a feeling of how you feel on Friday versus how you feel Monday.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that. How do you feel about that?
So this is how it happens. So I wake up on Friday. I'm home, right? Take the kids to school, do all kinds of things, pick the kids up from school. And I'm probably already starting to get a little tired. Right? So by Friday evening, I'm okay. But there's usually some people on the floor, usually a delivery that either happens on that Friday or happens early Saturday morning. If it's early Saturday morning, and when I say early Saturday morning, I'm talking about the 2 o'clock, 3 o'clocks in the morning. Yeah, I start to get a little bit tired, So I might have to put my head down if I can. I try to put my head down. Saturday morning, usually...
And you have a call room and everything.
Yes, I have a call room.
Yeah.
Usually by Saturday morning, I get my second wind and I'm able to round on people.
You do your bump.
What's the bump?
I can't feel my face.
Just joking.
What? Oh, ew, me.
I'm talking about that.
No, me. What the hell?
Okay.
I'm like, what's the bump?
I do my what do you call it?
Do the bump? Your Red Bull?
Red Bull, which everybody, I'm putting it out there. Everybody.
Hold on. Red Bull had a lawsuit.
About what?
Because it don't really give you wings.
What do you mean? Like literally doesn't give you wings?
That
or it
literally doesn't give you
Oh
wings.
my God, guys, come on. Are you
If
serious?
you noticed, right? They don't have people flying on the Red Bull commercials anymore. They don't have people or animals or whatever flying. And it says wings, WIIINGS. Apparently there was a lawsuit about Red Bull not really giving you wings. People figured out some sort of loophole like, oh, I thought it was going to give me wings, but it
Get
didn't.
the fuck out of here.
Yes.
So, yes, Red Bull was involved in a notable lawsuit concerning its slogan, Red Bull gives you wings. In 2013, Benjamin C. filed a class action lawsuit against the company alleging that this slogan and other marketing claims were misleading. The lawsuit contended that the Red Bull's assertions about enhancing performance, concentration, and reaction speed lacked scientific substantiation. While the phrase gives you wings is metaphorical, the suit argued that the overall marketing implied tangible benefits that the product did not deliver.
Hey.
Whoa. So you could really sue over anything.
Oh, you know what? You know who we're going to sue next?
Ooh.
We're going to sue, what's the name? A Holiday Inn Express.
Why is that?
Because remember, if you slept at a Holiday Inn Express, all of a sudden you could do like all kinds of physics.
Yeah, I see.
Anyway.
But yeah, so real quick, before you move on, guys, I'm giving up my, so I have a little bit of an addiction to energy drinks.
Red Bull.
Or Celsius.
Ew.
So, and both just, I got to give it up.
Caffeine.
So I need you guys to keep me accountable because we all family. And if you guys want to see me not get a heart attack on this show, you'll want me to get
that
this
would
stuff
be
up.
Nice.
So
that would be
I'll
nice.
probably go through a can a day.
A can?
Yeah, I'll probably go through a can a day.
A can?
Oh, like over the last month, probably a can a day. Not even, probably like a can every other day. But how I was like 2 months ago.
Yeah, 2 months ago, you were ridiculous.
Yeah, it was crazy. I was like going to Costco like, yo, this is a good deal.
Fix.
This is a good deal.
At the cashier, we're like, okay, can I get this Red Bull? It's like, sir, just use your ATM card.
Hey, Renee, you're the straight one.
Anyway.
I'm the funny
especially
one.
like a wife who really doesn't drink caffeine.
Okay. So tell us about what happens.
So Saturday I get my second wind.
Right.
And I'm okay to round. Usually on Saturday I'm like, chances are we're going to get something that comes in, and I'm usually right. We get something that comes in. Either the patient is laboring or maybe she rules out and she's not in labor. And then I'm able usually on Saturday to go back to my hotel room for some period of time, whether it's the entire rest of Saturday into Sunday morning, that remains to be seen. By Sunday morning, I'm usually back at the hospital, usually rounding. Maybe I'm doing a delivery in the morning. And then, finishing up rounding. And again, just kind of waiting to see if someone's going to come in. Sometimes we have an induction on Sunday. They've started putting in some of the inductions on Sundays. So, I'll start the induction, and depending on how I'm starting the induction, I usually can either rest up in the hospital, or I can actually leave and go, sleep. And then Monday morning, depending on, again, what's going on, I'm either in the hospital or I'm just signing out. And that's it. But that Monday morning, I got to tell you, I'm tired.
Yeah,
I am exhausted.
I think that
I'm exhausted. So
there are times where I feel like if folks really knew how doctors worked in comparison to pilots, people would be a bit concerned.
A bit.
Yeah, I think
a
so.
bit.
Because I think here, me already. How I feel like residency does a poor job of training you for the real world, and I know that people are like, well, what does that mean? What I mean is, the 80-hour work week is great, right? To be able to train in an environment where, people are actively looking at how long you're working, and that if you go past those limits, you get an opportunity to either go home or someone is looking at how well you're studying and so forth. But I'll be very honest with y'all, like that's not the real world. So that's why I say it's a great environment to learn, but they're not properly preparing you to work in the actual realistic world. And I know that's a controversial take. I'm ready for the smoke. I'm ready for all of that stuff.
I mean, we worked in an 80-hour work week, so we experienced it.
And the reason I'm saying that is, listen, if you really want to see a difference, then you have to not only just go after what's going on in residency, which for the past 20 years, they have, right? They addressed it like right before we started residency, like 2004, I think,
They
or
started
five.
the 80-hour work week.
You have to go after how doctors work in the real world to have any type of, significant change. Like, to me, it's just the same thing. Like, you're putting lipstick on a pig, right? By training residents, you guys know what I'm talking about.
It looks good in theory,
but you're
right?
sending them out into the world unprepared.
Right.
So I got in order for the 24/7 discussion, the big things that I have looked up is the sleep disruption. Right.
That's what gets me tired, is the sleep disruption.
There is possibly some cognitive impairment. There's emotional and psychological strain. I'm sure you can tell when I've been on for a while, like, I'm just off, and vice versa. There's also physical effects, right? Some of these things are listed as elevated blood pressure, headaches, fatigue, lethargy, long-term effects. I think these are, and if it makes sense, like a lot of times when you look at, these surveys by Medscape and so far, you'll see things like repeating things over weeks and weeks of these type of call, like you have increased chances of burnout and depression, right? Sleep debt and circadian misalignment, right? So basically, like you're not sleeping at night when you should, right? As a matter of fact, you're just like, you're getting your quote unquote second win, and like that just means like you're just not getting enough sleep,
right?
There's also safety risks that we just got to be honest about it. So it's just something
in your car, being really, really tired. I mean, I remember it just even in residency, right? We talked about like the whole 80-hour work week, but even that, right? Because it's 80 hours. 80 hours is a lot. So you're literally working, double what majority of the country works, in any given week. But two, you also have to kind of look at when you're working that, right? We talked about circadian cycles. And so when you're thinking about working night shift, or you are working, regular during the week, during the day, the regular shifts during the day, but then you come back on a Saturday or a Thursday or whatever it is, and you have to work 24 hours, a 24-hour shift, right? Now you're kind of thrown off, right? And so I remember this one time in residency, I was so tired. I kid you not. I remember I was on Route 1 and I fell asleep at the light.
Yeah.
I fell asleep.
That's a boring ass drive though, too.
Well, it's a boring drive, but I was 15 minutes away from my residency program, but I fell asleep.
You weren't excited to get back and call me and talk to me and stuff? Let me get so excited. I'm so excited to finish my
I definitely was not excited to talk to you in residency, because in residency, ooh,
like too much information. Like, what? You ain't got to share everything.
Yeah, but you're the one that started it. If you didn't want everything to come out, you shouldn't have started it.
Hold on a second, yo. You on one. All right, listen, guys. So this is a point where I talk about...
ask your locum's work wife what the hell going on, because who going live with me when I pop up on Dr. Nee?
Surprise, motherfucker.
You just finished a 24-hour call?
Okay.
So listen, guys, there's some mitigation strategies that you can use. This is where I always tell people, like when you're negotiating a contract or you're looking at something and you're like, man, like they're offering me a lot of money to do X, Y, and Z. These are the things that you have to start thinking about.
Yep.
Is it really worth it to get that additional 100K? Is it really worth it to get, whatever it may be in terms of money, if it means that you are possibly sacrificing your physical well-being, your mental well-being? So one thing that I would say is, when you're seeing, if you're going into a position, if you're going into a job and you see that this is a possibility where you may have to do a week of 24/7 call, but, during the daytime, you still have to do your regularly scheduled stuff. Or when that call is over, Monday, you're back on, right? Like, you have to make sure that you consider, like, man, maybe I should really force not income, but really force that I get protected post-call time off, right? Like, yo, you're going to have to give me like 72 hours to recover. If I do 24 hours, listen, guys, I'm not saying whatever you need, right. a day,
72 hours,
24 hours, 48 hours, whatever it may be, right? Because if you're telling them, listen, like, look, I'll take 50K less but I'm making sure that I get 2 days off protected. That might be everything, right? That might save your marriage. That might, decrease the amount of strain that you're putting on yourself and prolong your life. Nobody can ever
Right.
nobody can ever tell.
It'll help you
but it
see
may.
your kids more.
Right. The other thing too is, taking in I'm talking about the energy drinks and so forth. I'm a big, red flag for me, I'm taking energy drinks at 7:00 at night. And let's say, for example, nothing happens at nighttime.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're up because you took in caffeine, you took in an energy drink when you could be sleeping. And now when it's time to sleep during the daytime, you're off,
Yeah.
So limiting caffeine to early hours is good. And then the other thing too, this goes back to contract and just seeing how places look when you're interviewing them. Team-based coverage to prevent overloading one individual. That's huge, right?
Yeah.
So at my facility or the facilities that I work at, there's some locums positions that I look at now that say, hey, when you're one person on, you're handling trauma, you're handling general surgery, and you're handling critical care. And I'm like, well, how long am I doing that for? Well, we need you to do it for 72 hours. Click. Don't pass go. I don't want to deal with that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those are literally 3 individual services that you're taking care of, and you're doing that for 72 hours straight
It's a lot.
or 48 hours straight. That's a lot. That's a lot of decisions that you got to make. So for me, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
So for me, I prefer, for 12 hours, I can cover trauma, I can cover general surgery, I can cover critical care. And if I need to transfer people out, I have that option. These are things that you have to consider. And these are things that I would recommend is look for places, particularly when you guys just first get out, right? Look for places that have team-based coverage. That's what you're looking for.
Yeah. And
but it may not be like that for every specialty. I know maybe OB may not be
It's
like
a
that,
little
and
bit
IR. They can't afford to have 2 IR people at the same time, or cardiology, but it's just something to think
It's
about.
a little bit
Money and
different.
everything, man.
yeah, I mean, but what you're talking about is scope of work,
Yeah.
right? Is essentially what you're talking
I don't
about.
know. What does that mean, though? Talk.
No,
talk,
scope
you be
of
using,
work.
these big words.
What?
Scope
But
of
you
work
don't
and
know what
stuff.
scope of work
So
means.
explain
You went
it.
to school.
So explain it. That's why when I talk like that's why when
Okay,
she
but
wrote.
I'm about to. But
When
you
she wrote,
but
she
you
was like,
cut
"Dear
me
Knee and
off.
dear
Oh my
Dr. Knee,
God.
I love how you explain stuff, especially Knee." Yo,
Oh,
damn.
no, she didn't say especially me.
Scope of work. What the fuck? Go ahead.
Anyway, so scope of work, right? What are you going to be doing during the day? And also, what is the level of care, right? So for OB, for example, right? You guys in the trauma world, you have, level 1, level 2, level 3, right?
You mean for trauma activation?
For trauma
Yeah.
activations, right? The lower the level, the more
More
you know,
alert you should be,
the
and more resources are
right,
available.
Exactly, which means the busier you're probably going to be.
Mhm.
Whereas it's kind of the same thing with OB, except we go down, right? So the higher the level for NICU, right, the busier that we are more likely going to be, because the NICU will kind of determine what the OB service is going to be. And so you have to kind of determine, well, do I want to be at a level 3 NICU hospital? If you're doing OB, do I want to be at a level 1, or nursery, newborn nursery hospital when it comes to OB? And so you have to kind of just think about those things. Do you want to work office?
Do you think that
right?
people?
Because I don't do office anymore.
Do you think people really think like that? Because I think you've come to. Were you initially you came in initially thinking like that? There are certain types of places that you don't want to work at. There's certain types of experiences that you just don't want to deal with anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely didn't. Well, I kind of thought about that with level 1 versus level 2. I was like, I'm kind of burnt out from the level 1 system. I'd like to be at level 2s and so forth. That was as far as I went. But I think what you just mentioned is really important, where you're saying there's certain types of NICUs, which means there's only a certain level of sick type babies that I want to deal with, or complicated pregnancies I want to deal with.
Yeah.
Can you talk more about that without using the big buzzwords of
No, I mean,
work and all
it just what scope of work is not a big buzzword, Nee. Jeez. Anyway, so if you're in a level 3 NICU, right, chances are you have what they call an antepartum service or a bigger antepartum service, which basically means that you have pregnant women who are going to make up a service, right? So it's not just labor and delivery. It's mothers who have not and are not yet ready to deliver. And you're probably going to have a whole floor full of those women, right, that you now have to take care of. And so if they're having complications in their pregnancies, You have to now determine like, well, should I deliver her? Should I not deliver her? Like you have to kind of go through this kind of rigmarole and always think about the risks and benefits of either delivering this woman or not delivering this woman. And a lot of times you're going to transfer them over to labor and delivery thinking, okay, this is it. We're going to deliver her. And then next, she doesn't do anything. You're like, all right, well, transfer her back to the floor because she doesn't look like she's going to deliver. Oh, wait, looks like she's going to deliver again. Transfer her back. Like, those decisions are decisions that I'm like, ooh,
Mental gymnastics.
They're mental gymnastics. That was fun in residency. Not so fun now. I can do without that. So I don't do level 3 NICU anymore. I do level 2 and anything below that. That's kind of where I am. And sometimes we do get antepartum patients, but it's not a big service. It's not a huge service anymore.
Yeah, I really want to I want the folks to really realize that, like, yo, you really can do and work in any way that you want.
You can decide.
You just have to know that you can look for it. You have to then at the same time know how to ask for it and then kind of follow through.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing that it took me a while to realize. Well, I didn't know I was moving in that direction. I kind of was moving in that direction without really thinking about it when the only jobs that I was looking at were level 2s. I like working with residents, but it just so happened that most of the places that I was at had PAs. I love working with residents.
Me too.
But, the places that I'm at, it's few and far between. So, I think that it's super important for the folks who are listening right now, if you are in residency and you're looking for a gig, is, just know that, there's a lot of things that you're going to take from residency that you're going to apply, right? The knowledge wise. But in terms of the environment, that doesn't necessarily have to go with you. Particularly if the environment that you are working in is something that you don't like, you don't necessarily have to replicate it just because, you did it in residency. You did it in residency.
Right.
You can actually avoid that stuff. You can say, well, I was in a big academic center. I like my first job to be at a community-based center. Or I don't want to work with residents, or I don't want to work with, whoever, right? Or I don't want to have to take call, right? There's some surgeons and procedural places that are like, I don't want to have to take calls. So
or
I want
family med, internal med, some don't take call.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's really important to just know
I
what
want to be
it
in a place
is.
that has a hospitalist program.
Right, exactly. It's just important to know what you like and what you don't like. And, you're going to hear people who are going to try to criticize you or talk you out of, doing what it is that you actually like to do by saying, oh, well, but, what if you don't ever do X, Y, and Z again? It's like, well, I don't like doing it. So what's the big deal? If I don't like doing something, then I should have the right not to do that thing, right? Because there is value in doing other things that you like. One, the main value, I don't know about you, but the main value is you become very good at the things that you actually like to do, right? You become kind of the master of one, right? And so I think that there's something to be said for that. If you're pushing yourself to do something, I
think attending should be pushing that more.
Yeah,
like, hey,
exactly.
Listen,
do what it is that you love.
I know you're going to leave this residency, but just know that there's ways that you can be really super good at, like, just
super niche.
Couple of things and niche and be very successful. We're not going to look at you any other way and stuff.
Right, exactly.
I think that comes with maturity.
Yeah.
I think that comes with the School of Hard Knocks, and you just realize the BS that you want to put up with. You may just say, I'm going to put up with this, but I'm getting rid of all this other stuff. We see that in trauma, actually. Like any place that wants to start a trauma center, you'll see that there's a significant amount of people at a hospital that are usually resisting the transition from a hospital becoming a trauma hospital. And they'll tell you, bruh, I came here to avoid this stuff. I don't want to deal with level 1 stuff. I don't want to deal with level 2 stuff. I just want to take care of people. I don't want to have to make like for example, like a lot of, with trauma in critical care, you have to, like, the amount of echocardiograms that get ordered like exponentially increase. So now the people who read it are cardiologists, right? So now they're having to read echoes in the middle of the night or during the daytime. And they're like, look, man, like the way how it was before you guys got here was, an echo was only ordered by my service, and we only ordered, maybe 5 echoes a week. Now all of a sudden we're up to like 30 echoes. Some of them are stat. Some of them need to be read like at 2 o'clock in the morning. And guess what? You know, so it's just one thing to consider.
Yeah.
Is, guys, like, money ain't everything.
Yeah.
A lot of times, this is a really good question. A lot of times your working environment, how you get up and how you move.
Look at the money last. I'm telling you, it's not. And that when I say look at the money last, I don't mean that money is not important, right? Just because you put something last doesn't mean that it's not important. But I say put the money last because a lot of times when you put the money first, you make that so important to you that you forget to look at all those other things.
Or you put up with stuff, right? So if they're willing to pay you $1 million for something that the average is like $500,000.
You're going to have to earn it.
You're going to have to earn it, but you're going to be willing to put up with a lot of stuff
to
justify getting that $1 million.
Exactly. Earn it.
And you're going to be like, wow, like I really don't want to have to take call every day for the entire month. But they're going to be like, well, this is what comes along with the $1 million.
Right.
And you're going to be like, but I looked at that $1 million first. So now it's hard to go backwards.
Exactly.
But if you look at this and be like, you want me to work 30 days for how? Like, I ain't doing none of that. I ain't doing it. No. Then they say, we're going to give you $1 million. Like, I still ain't doing it.
It's not, $1 million ain't worth it.
I think about it, though.
You would think about it, but you would think about not getting that $1 million because, listen, you can't get your time back. You can always make money in other ways.
Yeah, there's
but
studies.
You can't get time back.
There's a study that I forgot the name. I gotta look it up. Maybe ChatGPT or someone can write it and let us know. But there's a study that shows like once you make a certain amount of money, right? Like there's a certain level of happiness that's like inversely related to like how much money you make, right? Like I think it's like 75K or something like that. Like most people are like extremely happy at 75K. Right. But this must have been like 20 years ago because, the way the price of them eggs, tariffs. But once you get past that point, right, once you start going into 100K, 200K, 300K, and well into, where we're talking about 7 figures, like the level of the amount of activity that people have like dramatically decreases because, they have all that money.
Gotta earn it.
But you gotta earn it. And a lot of times that may involve giving up weekends. Giving up something that you may want to do with your family, going to a vacation, whatever it may be,
earn it.
And that's when you're going to be at work all the time. And then that's when you will have to have a work husband or a work wife.
Earn it.
Earn it, right? Earn it. I got to look up that study, but if anybody knows it, write it in and we'll go from there. But
overall,
ain't
nobody giving you freaking $1 million or whatever, a huge salary to sit on your ass. Let's just put it out there.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to earn it.
Well,
so
in clinical medicine.
That's what we're talking about, right? That's what we're talking about.
Because the
CEOs, if you're the CEO, that's a different story. Okay, they literally paying you a whole 6-figure salary to sit on your ass in the black car that they sent to you.
Oh, you gonna get this show canceled? You gonna get this show canceled?
Listen.
Yo, I just found out that
if I'm lying, then they can cancel me.
For all the people who listen to this show who are new, shout out to y'all. We appreciate y'all on YouTube. Sorry. But we're not talking about anybody in particular. Everything. Alfred, please on the bottom, just put like, what is it? Descriptions of fiction. Descriptions. Everything in these things are fictionalized. Fictionalized. And what do you call it?
Gang.
A lot of shit is dramatized, but this shit ain't real, all right? Yo, shout out to the person who wrote to us about the first question, Dr. Muna. Shout out to you. And Surf Al, who wrote that question on Reddit. They didn't write it to us, but I just took it from Reddit.
Yeah.
But listen, guys, you know how to get in touch with us. I'm going to read this again because I just want to read it again. Guys, listen, I got a different one right here. Chat GPT, help me. You're listening to Docs Outside the Box, the podcast that brings you real stories, real struggles, and real strategies from physicians who are breaking the mold and redefining what it means to be a doctor today. Whether you're pre-med, knee-deep in residency, knee-deep, and running your own practice, Docs Outside the Box is here to give you the tools and confidence to take control of your career and your life. Got a question about student loans, locums, non-clinical careers, or anything in between? We want to hear from you, damn it. Shoot us your questions, big or small, and we just might answer it right here on the show. Email us at...
We ain't got no email.
Or DM us on Instagram at
Docs Outside the Box.
And this is your chance to get the answers you need from people who've been there. No fluff, no filter, just straight talk from doctors doing things differently.
Music swells. Go ahead, Alfred.
Peace, y'all. Catch you guys on the next episode.
Go out and vote.